I hate him. I hate his stupid smirk. I hate his stupid grin. Like, oh, are you still here? Go away. I freaking hate it. Freaking hate him.
Wow.
I know. Nobody was expecting that.
Welcome to Idiot Plot, a comedic podcast critiquing, discussing, and analyzing the media industry through reviews, debates, and historical deep dives.
Hello everyone, welcome to a very special July 4th edition of Idiot Plot. I'm David Yanish, and joining me today, as always, are my co-hosts Alex Overdahl,
Merica,
and Justin Neitzel.
USA! USA! USA!
That's right. That's right. On today's episode, we're celebrating Independence Day by looking at patriotic and American movies. We thought this was going to be a very simple episode until we started movies to talk about, and there's a lot. So because of that, we're going to skip the opening segment and drive straight into America movies. I guess to start,
do it the American way. Don't think about the consequences. Just jump right in.
Yeah, pretty much. Let's not have a plan. Let's just get right into it. We'll start for the bat. But we're gonna start, since we are celebrating Independence Day, with the movie Independence Day. This weekend's usually a big weekend for movies. It used to be when big movies would come out, the big blockbusters would come out in theaters because that's when everyone had off, and obviously that's not the case this time. But I think Black Widow.
You think the Boss Baby Family Business is gonna break the box office?
Yeah. I know technically this episode comes out after July 4th, but whatever, it's close enough.
I mean, F9 is out now, it's right before it, so
it could be good. Yeah, F9 underperformed, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But regardless, Independence Day, probably the movie everyone thinks of when they think of patriotic movies. But is it really a patriotic movie? I mean, I guess in some ways it is, but in some ways it really isn't, because it's less about America and more like the world.
It's more about humanity, saving humanity.
I feel like that there's the one super famous speech that everybody will look up on YouTube and go yeah, and then share everywhere. But outside of that, I'm pretty sure the movie has absolutely zero aspirations to be about anything. Planes go burr, aliens go splat, and it's fun. But yeah, I feel like it is called Independence Day. It does have that big Independence Day speech, but I'm pretty sure it aspires to nothing else. And that's fine. It works.
Probably Roland Emmerich's only good movie.
The Patriot's pretty good.
Which is another big one, yeah. But honestly, I guess knowing the rest of his movies, it probably is also supposed to be patriotic or something. It's hard to tell because most of it's pretty dumb but fun. I mean,
you have the military stand up. The president is going to fight in a fighter jet.
Okay.
Well, hell yeah. And then they made Independence Day 2, which we don't talk about.
No, we do not. The less said about that movie, the better.
But Independence Day 1, that's the one because they blow up the White House. And everyone was like, oh, shit. We got to kick some fictional alien ass. People in the audience were like, hell yeah, let's kick some ass for this fake-ass movie.
I mean, I still enjoy it. It's fun. It's dumb.
But it's weird that Roland Emmerich has made a career of patriotic movies.
And apocalypse movies.
That's so weird.
The marriage of those two that he never really topped was doing both of them in one movie.
Well, because Independence Day is it's a bad movie in my opinion, but it's my favorite bad movie. If it's on TV, I'll usually watch it.
Yeah, it's well-made trash that knows it's trash and has fun anyway. So it's actually kind of good.
And it's so damn quotable.
Funny thing is, say you complain how bad the movie is, it won an Oscar for best visual effects,
which do look good.
Yeah, they still hold up pretty well.
Yeah, and I mean it's probably playing on fucking cable right now. It's probably running this whole weekend. So
it's like a Christmas Story during 4th of July. It just plays over and over and over.
How come Randy Quaid didn't get an Oscar now for just playing Randy Quaid?
Because he just wandered on set and they just were like, okay, well, he's in the movie now.
He's just a crazy dude and he plays just himself, which is pretty kind of funny in context. But the film, I do think it holds up pretty well. I know some people hate it now, but I always thought it was funny. I don't understand why we even had to have a sequel, because money apparently.
So long later, I'm surprised they didn't, it's the 90s. I'm surprised they didn't instantly pump another one out.
And no Will Smith.
Yeah, and
Yeah, that also defeats the purpose.
horrible younger cast who was all boring and bland. And I mean, you
They
got
kill off G characters.
yeah.
If current Will Smith says no, you have.
I don't think he said no. I think he just had scheduling conflicts with Suicide Squad.
Yeah. That was the problem. Is they wanted to film at the same time as Suicide Squad, and he committed to Suicide Squad.
Okay.
But also, he picked Suicide Squad over that movie.
That does say a lot.
I mean, Suicide Squad is probably somewhat better than that than Independence Day. Not by much, but
it's a really good movie, though. I mean, Bill Pullman. I mean, it's a good movie. It's a fun movie because like Bill Pullman kills it, Jeff Goldblum kills it. There's that one shot when the main ship blows everything up. You get that slow-mo shot of the dog jumping into the little alleyway.
gotta save the dog. Everyone else just runs by this doorway. It's like, nope, we're not gonna jump in here and hide.
But I think Independence Day brings up what is the dichotomy when we talk about movies about America. There seems to be a difference between America movies and Merica movies. You know, because American movies generally seem to be pretty cynical a lot of the time. They'd be dark, not necessarily happy, but really dive deep into aspects of American culture and life. Whereas Merica movies are like the gung-ho USA, USA, America #1 kind of films that are both like really popular and can also like coexist. It's really strange. It's a really strange phenomenon when it comes to like movie genres and movie types.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like you don't see it elsewhere as much. Like I haven't seen a movie from England that's like Jolly Ho and like, you know, God Save the Queen the whole movie. You know,
Jolly good,
It's
dear
just-
sir. Would you like some
like-
tea and crumpets?
But again, his point though, because Alex, you're saying there's no film where like some blimey like Colin. There's no movie where Colin Firth pulls a big sword and goes for the Queen and jumps into a giant like battle.
Right, it really doesn't happen. Like all the ones that are like about British values are stuff like Colonel Blimp and stuff like that like kind of examine the aspects of it, but are very like introspective. At least, you know, I'm sure, like, you know, with exceptions, like I'm sure that there are countries that make you make those, but you know, like you don't. It's not as common as it is here, where you get both types.
Sometimes in the same movie.
Yeah.
I think it's just because America has that stereotype of like, oh, we're gun-toting rednecks who love shooting shit.
But look at like the Rambo series, right? Rambo 1 was like a pretty dark portrayal of veterans with PTSD and Vietnam veterans coming back from the war, basically hated by their own people that they thought they were trying to protect. I mean, that's what that first movie, First Blood, is about. It's about John Rambo coming back to basically almost giving his life, you know, being heavily tortured, seeing his friends die, and coming back to a country that despises him and treats him like garbage, and eventually like snaps. And then Rambo 2 is just gun go burr. He has to go in and wipe out an entire village. Rambo 3 wipes out an entire country with the brave soldiers of the Mujahideen. That ending has not aged well at all.
It's gracefully. What are you talking about?
Well, is this more of an effect of like, because First Blood came out in the early 80s, they went full 80s by the second one?
I don't really know what the hell happened.
Like, kind of going off I feel like some of it too is like going off the Stallone image, and he probably got more control because the first one is a book, isn't it?
Yeah, first one's a book.
Yeah, and then they just started going like, what if we sent John Rambo on secret missions?
What if John Rambo had to go back to Nam? Is essentially what happened. It became just a cartoon at that point.
But let's make it fun, not depressing.
Oh, that said, the fourth Rambo film is pretty freaking great.
Yeah, I really like that one as well.
Rambo or Last Blood?
Rambo. Last Blood, I'll admit, entertained me. It's not a good movie. It's really stupid. But I don't think it's... I mean, I don't think it's as bad as some people say it is. I think you have to look at it from a non-political lens to, I think, enjoy the movie, because politically the movie is kind of troubling. But as Old Man Stallone doing like, because he basically fights a cartel but Home Alone style in like tunnels, and it's hilarious because he's setting all these traps. But you see shots of like these cartel members walking through the tunnels, and you just see like Old Man Stallone scurrying behind them in the shadows. It's terrifying, but also hilarious.
Just imagine Sylvester Stallone just scurrying.
Yeah, like being quiet. It's like that's terrifying, because I feel like he could actually do this shit, and that scares me.
They just followed him with a film crew. He just did all this himself.
Like, watch me kill a bunch of fools.
But it's amazing that that's where the franchise went. That it went from being an anti-war, anti-Vietnam reflection of issues of American society to America rocks, fuck yeah, boom, 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 boom. Like, how the hell did we get to that point? I mean, Rocky did it too. Lots
and lots of cocaine.
Like, Rocky 1 is not really a patriotic movie, but help by Rocky 4.
He ends the Cold War with his fist.
Yeah, Stallone basically punches the Cold War to death.
If I could change, and you could change, we can all change.
He dies.
I think Rocky was a little more I won't say maybe smooth on that path, because the first one, one type of Merica movie in general is also the underdog story. Yeah. The underdog proves themselves and rah rah, even though he doesn't win in Rocky, but he proves himself, and that's the underdog story part of it, and then that just naturally morphed maybe not naturally, that morphed into I'm fighting the Soviet Union.
And not just that, it ended with the Soviets chanting USA, USA, which would never happen.
They would all be executed.
Yeah, that's not how that would go.
To be fair, it was more gradual change with the Rocky series, because they got a little crazier every one, whereas Rambo just went full crazy the next one.
Yeah.
Well, what's strange too is Rocky went back with Rocky Balboa, and then the Creed movies. It reverted back to what it used to be, whereas Rambo has stayed Rambo.
Yeah,
it's interesting that is what this had. I mean, Stallone's Stallone. I mean, Arnold's the same way, right?
Commando.
yeah. Every Arnold movie is just I mean, it's not necessarily America good. I think Commando is pretty America, or like Chuck Norris, right? Every Chuck Norris movie is some vaguely European terrorist comes in, and Chuck Norris needs to kill them all. Steven Seagal's the same way, like Under Siege.
Die Hard,
yeah. But that said, I think going off Rambo, that basically the most Merica genre is the war movie. But that said, there's lots of war movies that actually have pretty good analysis of what war does to American culture. Mm-hmm. I mean, the obvious one, of course, is Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah, which has both, and that's also it's not as hotly debated because everybody likes it, obviously, but it is discussed. Is it more Merica or is it more this sucks? And I mean, the answer in the case of that one anyway is both, for sure.
But I don't necessarily believe that is what Spielberg intended. I think the interpretation is that to me, the interpretation is that the opening and the very end are Merica, but the vast majority of the movie is meant to be a reflection of all this death for just one life. Yeah.
Was it worth it?
Yeah, it's a pretty self-reflective movie. I mean, of course, it's a great movie, except hot take. This isn't really a controversial opinion anymore. It used to be, but it's not anymore. For Saving Private Ryan, is that the first 20 or 30 minutes is amazing, and the rest doesn't nearly live up to the opening.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not even hot. That's room temperature.
It used to be hot. It used to be a hot take, but I think people have accepted that Saving Private Ryan probably isn't as good as we remember it.
Yeah, I watched it recently. I mean, it's still fantastic, but there's no denying that there's a little bit of for the rest of it, man, this is really good. But that opening is probably the best sequence ever in a war film. So it just can't live up to that for the rest of the runtime because it's so outrageously good.
Yeah.
I'd say the ending battle kind of is not as good as the first, but it's up there too.
I would agree with that.
But the whole time I'm just thinking like, man, that opening is just so powerful. It's like,
Well,
Yeah.
and even talk about American values, right? Having the bookends of the movie be Private Ryan and I was an old man visiting the graves of those that fought to save him. That scene is both very Merica in that, it's like, like respect the veterans kind of thing, which you should always do. I'm not trying to say that that's like a Merica value, but it seems to be a common theme in these kinds of movies. But it's also pretty self-reflective about the cost of war, because clearly the question on Private Ryan's mind at that moment is, did I earn what these people fought for me to have?
Well, even
Did I live a good life?
well, even Tom Hanks' character before he dies, he's like, earn this.
Yeah, and that's the question: is did he earn it? I mean, that's super powerful.
It's also very hard to say whether he did or not.
Mm-hmm.
right, because it's like, and I think like, at least for me, like the point it's going for is just like the value of life in general, and like he's alive and living, so like it's impossible to know if any of that is worth it, but you just have to make the most of it anyway.
Well, and not only is he alive and living, his family line wasn't wiped out.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he had a whole bunch of kids and everything.
Which is what leads me to this next movie I'm going to bring up, which is a movie that I doubt either of you have heard of. But it's the real life story that became Saving Private Ryan. It's my grandpa's favorite movie. I never heard of this if not for him, but it's called The Fighting Sullivans, and it's about the real. I'm gonna spoil the movie because I have to, because it's literally the main point of the story. But it's about the Sullivan brothers, who were this family of brothers that they won in World War II. They were all on the same ship, and they all went down with the ship. So this entire family was basically wiped out. And this movie is interesting because you get the Americana slice of life, where you get all of these brothers growing up in 20s, 30s, 40s America, and them kind of, I mean, it's very cheesy. It's very old movie cheese, and which has aged super great. But you get this like them growing up, they're brothers, they're united, they go to war together as a family, even though they have lives to live. They put it on hold, to do what's best for their country, and they go down fighting together. Super patriotic, super America, but at the same time, this story is pretty anti-war, because the whole thing is like this family was wiped out, and you get this tragic ending of the mom and dad that are left with all of their kids dead at the same time, which is haunting. But this was the 40s, so it's a propaganda movie for World War II. So their death is framed as like a patriotic act, and the film is basically inspiring people to be willing to do the same thing that they did, because it had to be. Even though at the same time you're basically watching these kids grow up and be together and go out together, and it kind of leaves a question in your head: was it worth it? A little bit. It's hard for me to recommend this movie just because it's really old. There's not necessarily a good copy of it left, and it's not necessarily like made well, but the ending's pretty freaking powerful, and it relates to Saving Private Ryan, and that it's the real life equivalent of that. But also it's the fact that it's anti-war, pro-war propaganda. It's not as anti-war as Johnny Got His Gun or something like that. But
yeah, I don't think I've seen this, but I feel like I've heard of it.
I mean, they've admitted that it became Saving Private Ryan. Because it became a law. It became an actual law that people of the same bloodline or last name or family all couldn't be together in the same unit.
I mean, it makes sense.
It's honestly something that probably should have been thought of before it happened.
Well,
but
to be fair, though, I mean, even had they not all been there, there's no guarantee they all would have survived the war anyways.
Mm-hmm. But it increases the odds.
Yes.
It's also a factor of who, I mean, we hadn't had wars of that scale before that, and we won again because we'd all just blow each other up before. So, it's like literally anybody of fighting age was at war, like literally everybody. So
it's an interesting film, but war films in general are interesting interesting because there's so many. You get that mix of the anti-war and the pro-war, not necessarily pro, but like pro-military,
Right.
because you have stuff like Act of Valor, which I respect. That's the movie that was filmed using real Navy SEALs as actors. I respect what that movie was trying to do. Yeah, I respect its message. It's not a good movie, but I can at least respect what it's trying to do. And you have that compared to something a little more dark, even in the same war, like Hurt Locker, right?
Yeah.
Or Zero Dark 30, which is really about the toll of war. Or the super bizarre one, which is American Sniper, which is somehow both Merica and America in pro-war, anti-war, but not at the same time. It's bizarre. The movie is an enigma to me. I feel like what you want it to be is what you'll get out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what you think it's gonna be. It's which I think in some ways makes it perfect.
Yeah, because
good job, Clint Eastwood.
I mean, it raises discussion between people about it, not just this is what it was. There's no debate. It's
a movie that I've seen have so many different interpretations, and they're all right. I mean, I'm a believer in objective meaning. I get into a fight with my wife about this all the time because she's a firm believer that the meaning of a work, of a story, of a movie, of whatever comes solely from the audience and what they interpret. And I'm a firm believer of that might be true, but there's also an objective meaning that the author intended.
Right. And I lean more on that. I think certainly like there's communication of it that can lead people to think certain things, but like they can be totally off base, although it is your job to try and communicate it. But there is something you're trying to communicate. Like it's not like you're just like, oh, I'm just, pissing on the page and, whatever you guys think.
Like think of it what you will. Whatever you think, it's right.
American Sniper, though, is bizarre in that I'm not entirely sure what the meaning's supposed to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And maybe Clint left it up for that. Who knows?
But I think Clint Eastwood himself is like an interesting figure in this kind of discussion because like he's become that Merica symbol, right?
Yep. Yeah, he has.
Everybody circles around that. But if you look at his films, like look at like Unforgiven, Letters from Iwo Jima, like Gran Torino. He's made a bunch of like America examination, violence examination films, war examination, like in a very critical lens. I mean, like Unforgiven is like the anti-redemption story. Letters from Iwo Jima looks at the war from the opposite perspective. And then, Gran Torino is about someone with those values learning to be kinder and more flexible and re-examine himself.
Yeah, Gran Torino is like a super good example of American movies. It's about a racist dealing with racism.
And learning to judge a person by the content of the character, not the color of their skin.
And not necessarily not be racist, but more just learn to coexist in a way, too.
And by the end, he cares enough about the family to risk his life.
Yeah, it's a pretty phenomenal story from someone whose big claim to fame is misattributed tough guy quotes on your uncle's Facebook page.
Yeah, everybody's got at least one uncle or aunt who posts the fake Clint Eastwood post with text like, never said that.
Yeah, whereas him as Dirty Harry or him from Unforgiven pointing a gun at the camera.
Saying with something he never said.
With some quote that's something like, if you take me down, you better go for the kill, because I always get back up, or something like that.
But yeah, it's just funny how he's become that when like his work really often says completely different things and is actually like very introspective and examines a lot of different things. And
that's what I think a good America movie does, right? It examines American culture and American life. You have stuff like American Pop, which details an immigrant family over 4 generations told through their ability as musicians. You have stuff like that. Midnight Cowboy. Yeah, the very a very specific picture of someone who's idealistic, but then kind of learns what life is really like in that specific area of New York, and like it kind of destroys them. It is really like a examination of not everything's all grand, like American Dream examination and things like that. And Midnight Cowboy is about his American dream being smashed in front of his eyes. Yeah.
Well, you also have like Of Mice and Men as well, where basically they're planning on their future and then stuff goes awry that causes their dream to no longer be possible.
Of Mice and Men is like the one book I was forced to read in high school that I actually like still enjoy. Probably that in 1984. But Mice and Men's a good book. It's a really good like Depression era America story that I think can also be reflected in modern times because it's a super simple theme of you want a patch of land to claim as your own and live your life. It's the American dream.
Yeah, and like there, I feel like there's kind of that thing like all old movies were just super patriotic and like there are people who support that or don't support that. But then like, well, what about Grapes of Wrath? I mean, that came out in 1940 and it's fantastic and it's super depressing. Like
there were a vast majority of
starts with them getting kicked, like they just don't own their land anymore.
And they have to travel around in a freaking truck trying to find work.
Dying off, and they can't find work, and it's like it is like that complete disillusion of the American dream. Like they just don't have it anymore. They're just told it's not theirs anymore.
I'm sorry, I just keep thinking about Grapes of Wrath of the VeggieTales with.
I knew it.
We never take a bath. It's a horrible parody when you think about it.
Oh yeah.
But most old films from that era, a lot of them are actually super depressing. Like we think of them being like patriotic propaganda, and a lot were, especially from the 40s. But you go like before World War II, most movies about like American city life, because that's what a lot of them were super negative portrayals.
Yeah,
like Dead End. A lot of that stuff was just very depressing. But very
and War II before before the 40s ones that were like the propaganda films for that brief window, but ones like All Quiet on the Western Front, like is one of the big anti-war movies.
And people like having their world shown in front of them and then having to examine it. I mean, people might claim they don't, but those are a lot of the films that do really well, even now, are the ones that take different parts of American culture and look at it. Like the big one, and I think people have been waiting for this fight for a very long time. But the big one that isn't necessarily recent, but recent enough, is Forrest Gump. Now I hate this movie with a passion. I really truly hate it. But it is a pretty good example of like an American movie, right? But true like American like folk hero, because that's one of the big things about when we think of like American storytelling, right? We think of like the Mark Twain style folk hero, and Forrest Gump has that folk hero vibe, even though that movie is way too long and way too slow.
Boo.
I will agree, it does drag on a little bit, but I do like the movie.
I will admit, I do appreciate how it attempts to blend history and kind of the American way of life into the story. I just, again, way too long, way too slow. Oh my God, why is he running? So stupid.
Just felt like running.
Oh, Dom, so freaking.
To be fair, I'm sure there are a lot of people nowadays that agree with you.
Oh, I'm sure there are. There better be. I can't be on my own in this.
No.
I know there are, and I hate all of them. But I think that's almost like more of a Merica one. But like, I still enjoy it. Like
it's a Merica one that thinks it's an American one.
Yeah.
That's pretty true.
Because it thinks it's giving an accurate view. Because it does go into some dark subjects like AIDS, but the film is pretty sanitized.
Yep.
Like the Vietnam stuff is pretty dark, but
to be fair, I mean, it's being portrayed through pretty much the lenses of a mentally handicapped person who kind of sees the good in everything versus the bad. Well,
and Vietnam is where you get like the true mix of the America of America versus Merica. Is the Viet? I mean, you have
like a Merica Nam one.
We Were Soldiers probably is the closest I can think of.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah,
Good Morning Vietnam.
That's not Merica.
Yeah, that's an America one for sure.
Yeah, Good Morning Vietnam. You think it's gonna be Merica, but that end is heartbreaking.
True. I guess I'm thinking of all the comedy that Robin puts into it.
But with Vietnam, you have Platoon, you have Full Metal Jacket.
Deer Hunter. I mean, I guess it is about Vietnam. It's about more than that because the war part is very brief. But I'd count Deer Hunter for sure as like that examination.
Because Vietnam as a war was the first time Americans were faced with the question of is this worth it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And like the combination of being able to see the footage of it and then like wondering like because with World War II it was very clear, and with Vietnam it's like wait, why? And so all the films reflect that, and and all of the turmoil that brought.
I don't like a lot of non-movies, I'll be honest. But like we've had our Full Metal Jacket fight, but I do appreciate what they often go for.
Yeah. Well, and I would say, really, like, thinking about The Deer Hunter, that is one of the most America movies because of the breadth of it. It shows, like, a good hour of the movie is before they're even in Vietnam. They're steel workers. They're in this small, like, Pennsylvania town, their life there, and then Nam. And then the other big chunk of it is after, and how that's changed them and changed how they see the world and who they are as people and how they're broken. So, like, that's a very, like, deep examination of it.
I mean, the only thing the Nam movies that really have going for them is the soundtracks, typically.
It ain't me.
Well, that's the stereotype.
Yeah, none of them typically are pretty introspective.
Yeah, because I think those are the stereotype ones for sure. Fortunate Son, blaring or whatever. But like, I think the ones that have lasted are, like you said, very introspective, like Apocalypse Now and Deer Hunter and Full Metal Jacket, Platoon.
What's really strange is if you want to actually look at like war history movies that are pretty Merica, you have to go back to like the 1800s, 1700s. Those movies typically are pretty like gung-ho, like Gettysburg.
Yeah.
I mean, and no, I love Gettysburg. I love that movie. It's obscenely long, and I should hate it for it. But there's something like that soundtrack, Jeff Daniels yelling bayonets, like it gets me hyped every time.
And the other big one we already briefly mentioned, but I mean it's literally called The Patriot, right? And that, like, the British are literally like stormtroopers, and like he's just killing people with a hatchet with an American flag, like, and it is true because like I think those ones are easier to do that with, or at least the easiest outside of World War II, where there was like a clear like bad force. But like this was so long ago, and it has become like just basic part of history that doesn't get examined. So it's very easy to go like, the rah-rah patriotism of that and not look at more complex things.
I think there's a problem with most war movies nowadays. There's not a clear enemy like there was back in World War II.
The enemy is ourselves.
Yeah, and like you can examine that, but some like don't. And then it's like, okay, but like then what are we going for? Like, I mean, like
real war were the friends we made along the way, Alex.
Right. Like, great ones. Like, I mean, I love Hurt Locker. We talked about that one. There have been some other ones recently. 1917 was very good, but like, I mean, one I really liked when I saw it, although I was younger, but now I'm kind of like a little more lukewarm on. Like, Lone Survivor is a very like Merica movie. But like,
it starts off that way, and then it kind of slowly, I think, kind of goes into America movie at the end.
Right, but for me, that one is one that's like, I feel like it doesn't land a hard point besides just like soldiers have sacrificed a lot. Okay, but what are you like saying? You know what I mean? Like, because there's not as clear of an, like, the enemy isn't as concrete, and it's not really making commentary on that either. It kind of feels like, okay, what's the point besides these people died and sacrificed a lot?
I see no difference between Lone Survivor and Act of Valor.
Yeah, this one just has real actors.
Yeah, this one just has actual people that know what they're doing.
Around the same time, both similar in those points, and yeah, it lacks like a concrete force. And it doesn't have to be like, we make like a cartoon villain out of somebody. Like, the enemy can be yourself. It can be like personal themes. Like, All Quiet on the Western Front does not have a clear enemy at all, really. Everybody looks the same, and it's like more about other things. But I agree, some of the modern ones like lack that central thing.
Since we're on the topic of history, I'll lay down an interesting one that I think there's some debate in, and that's Lincoln.
Yeah, that is an interesting question.
It's interesting because it portrays Lincoln obviously as a great president, and I think tries to explore him as a man, but always, I think, to me, has this patriotic glow behind it of Abe Lincoln freeing the slaves, of being a hero, of winning the war, that kind of thing.
It's just very great, for sure.
It feels very rah-rah. Not as bad as some. It's not Abe Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Which I do love, ironically. I ironically love that movie, but it's not that.
I mean, I guess it's just kind of hard to get an introspective of a person that far back.
There's enough documentation where you can do it. The problem is do you really want to possibly portray Abraham Lincoln in a negative light? I mean, we kind of regard him as like the best president ever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, you know, in particular, modern films struggle with the complete portrait because there is that tendency to just like, you know, make people saints because it's like, well, if we had anything, then we're gonna make them look horrible. But like, a lot of great examinations do both.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's been true of a lot of ones. Like, this isn't an America movie, but like I feel like Gandhi is a very complete portrait of like, yeah, this was like a real person, because that feels like a mythic figure too, right? Like, that feels like somebody who wasn't real, and the movie's very much about like, yeah, this person existed and was a person.
You're kind of in that territory of like, don't meet your heroes because you'll be disappointed kind of thing.
Oh, Gandhi had some skeletons in his closet, that's for sure. But the myth kind of outweighed the man in a lot of ways, which is kind of how it is with Lincoln.
Like, yeah, and with those people, it's like a lot. The ones that do it well, it's more like powerful when you see the complete person, because it's like, you know, this person was a person yet did all these things. If that makes sense.
Well, the period to me that seems to be the most fantasized in movies, going back to like the Patriot, is Revolutionary War. You had 17. I mean, you have 1776, which is a musical that is simultaneously pretty accurate, while also not being accurate at all.
Mm-hmm.
It does do a lot that really happened, but it's 1776, and in a lot of different media, like the one that just came out as of this recording, I watched it yesterday when it came out just for this episode, which was Merica the Motion Picture, which is an animated 300-ish retelling of the Revolutionary War, where George Washington's played by Channing Tatum, and he wields chainsaws. As he fights Benedict Arnold and King James alongside Samuel Adams, who invented beer, Thomas Edison, who's a Chinese woman, Geronimo. It's really fun and it's really funny, but I do think it does kind of reflect the larger issue about the Revolutionary War and how we kind of view that stuff as like fantasy.
Yeah.
When there was a real human struggle to it.
Well, yeah, you think about it, it was basically colonies going up against, at the time, the greatest force in the world in England.
Well, it was more than that. It's something we don't really talk about. Like, one of the big things American Motion Picture does is it kind of perpetuates the myth of Benedict Arnold. Yeah, the dude's a super traitor, but we also have to remember that the Revolutionary War was almost as much a civil war as the actual American Civil War. There's some myth that we're taught as kids that based on the Revolutionary War was like 90% people that were for independence with a few holdouts here and there that were made from a mock. No, it was actually pretty much 50-50.
Yeah, I mean, it was very divided.
Them declaring independence, I mean, it wasn't... Like, it was split, like, right down the middle. They, like, just had enough to, like, go forward with it.
If you want a really good portrayal of that, the HBO John Adams miniseries, the second episode, gives, like, the most realistic view. And 1776 tries to portray that division, but it does it in such a cartoonish way. Where it basically portrays the dissenters and I guess you could say loyalists, even though to call them loyalists is insulting because they were patriots, as people that just wanted control of their land and wanted their money, when in reality they were terrified of waging a war.
Right. I mean, if they lose, they're all gonna be executed, and they'll be known forever as like the biggest traitors ever.
Yeah. If they lose, them and their families will be ruined.
Will be pretty much shunned for the rest of their lives.
Or executed off just straight up. The marked as traitors, and the boot will come down on the colonies harder than it had before. And stuff like 1776 and the Patriot really kind of undermines that.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not fair to be like, look at the pansies that don't want to fight the freaking giant empire that controls 2/3 the planet. Well, like everyone was brave people, and yeah, we have John Adams, but again, that's kind of a myth that kind of portrays like the Merica myth. of history of USA number one. And some stuff like there's this weird TV movie from like 2000s where Jeff Daniels plays George Washington that kind of reflects a lot of the actual sentiment of how weird it is to be like a guerrilla soldier in your own country because you can't necessarily trust everyone.
Yeah, and I think I would like to see more films that examine that, but at this point, it is like you would almost face like a backlash, right? Like people have made gods of these people, basically, right? So like, and it's much more interesting to see them examined as people, but
they all had gods.
Yeah.
So, some more than others. Thomas Jefferson. But kind of segueing off of history and kind of off of military in general, to me, where you see a lot of the America versus America, especially more on the Merica side, is sports movies.
Yes. Everyone loves a good underdog story.
Yep, the underdog story. But it's when the underdog story merges with patriotism is when we get stuff like Miracle.
Oh yeah, so cheesy.
I like Miracle, but it's pretty cheesy.
Yeah.
It's weird because Miracle and Rocky 4 are like very similar movies that do things in very similar ways. Yet Miracle is loved and Rocky 4 is only loved ironically. Even though they're both pretty cheesy.
Well, I mean, Miracle, what do you want from Disney? We're going to ham this shit up.
It is pretty hammed up. But even other sport films like Radio is pretty Americana, but almost borderline on Merica. Remember the Titans? Holy shit!
I love that movie.
I mean, they all have because they're all about like the small town, especially Hoosiers. You know the small town where everyone's going to be a coal miner like their dads. They're going to work in the mines because no one can go to college. But they can win the state basketball tournament if they just work together.
Yeah, if we just work hard and believe in each other, we will instantly have more talent than the opponent.
I think that's what Tim Tebow did every time he played during halftime.
See, I don't think people would necessarily relate that to like Merica, right? But it is.
Yeah, it's like more the Merica value kind of thing.
It's American values being turned into Merica values, being turned into like the underdog can always win, that kind of thing. So there's not necessarily an exploration of anything dark or deep. Some sports movies try to do that, but most don't. Most end up like Miracle.
I remember the Titans.
And of course, there's like the parody stuff, like America Motion Picture, Team America World Police, which is way better. America Motion Picture, probably not worth your time.
Well,
yeah, just watch Team America.
Just Team America.
And for like a full-on sports movie that goes full Merica is Talladega Nights.
Yeah, but that's kind of ironic, though. If you think Talladega Nights is like trying to be Merica, then like you don't know Will Ferrell that well.
It's making fun of it.
Yeah, but there are people that think it's like trying to like be like what it is.
People who have not heard the word irony.
Yeah, because there are people that take Talladega Nights seriously.
I honestly like. I'm sure they do because there are lots of stupid people, but like I struggle to think that anyone could possibly think that. The man's favorite movie is Highlander.
It's the greatest movie ever made.
It won the Academy Award for greatest movie ever made.
I do like that movie, Highlander. But there are people that do because they like it. They think it's funny and they don't understand irony. I'm sure if they saw Will Ferrell's George Bush comedy special, they'd freak out.
They probably thought it was really George Bush.
But that's Will Ferrell and Talladega Nights. I think it's ironic. And racing movies too. Racing movies are also pretty like America, like Ford versus Ferrari. Yeah, Ford can win. Yeah, that movie is very America.
What's the other one? What's the Tom Cruise one? Days of Thunder.
Yeah, Days of Thunder. But also, a really weird genre and phenomenon with America movies is like the introspective comedies. Like one that I don't think people would think that it's as deep as it is, but it is National Lampoon's Vacation. Because people get, I think, so sucked into like Christmas Vacation and other stuff that they don't realize that the first one is actually a pretty like deep cutting satire of the American family vacation and American family ideals.
Let's all go on a road trip.
Christmas Vacation certainly does that too, but the first one probably more so.
The first one is way more cynical. I mean, he almost cheats on his family on the trip, and they kill like the aunt dies, they kill the dog, like they do all this stuff happens, but they have to get to Wally World.
He has to hold the employee hostage.
Or we'll be singing Zippy Doo Dah out of our assholes.
Is that the one where the grandmother dies?
Yeah, and they strap her to the roof.
I thought it was the great aunt.
I can't remember.
It's been a while.
But even like you have Vacation, but you also have something like A Christmas Story, which I think is way more of an America movie than is a Christmas movie.
Oh yeah, it's very that is an interesting one. That, like you said about some people Talladega Nights, I definitely think more people don't take Christmas Story ironically and take it at face value, and that is just like absolutely tearing into like the stereotypical 50s perfect family life. That just tears in a new one, like the whole movie.
It's fantastic satire that goes after teachers, parents, the whole like commercialism. It's a super like anti-commercialist movie, even though it's like now been marketed up the ass.
The irony.
That's a movie where the irony is lost on everyone. I think people understand what National Lampoon's Vacation is trying to be. I think people have totally forgotten what Christmas Story is trying to be.
Yeah.
And I guess that's kind of another genre, because this kind of fits. But it's a genre we haven't really talked about in our pre-planning. But one of the most, I think, American genres probably is the coming-of-age story.
Very true.
Yeah, that's very true.
Stories where you have people, kind of grow up and realize that the world isn't that great. There's tons of like
also trying to find their place in the world.
Yeah, like stuff like Adventureland to me is a good example of that, where you're exploring like American culture of the high schooler fresh out of high school, wanting to go to college, but works at an amusement park, and they're all working together at the amusement park, and they kind of bond as a group. That's super like introspective looks at culture. Like that happens a lot, and I think people take those at face value when no, there's some really good looks at our country in these.
I think like Last Picture Show is another big one, because I mean that's a coming of age one that's also simultaneously like kind of the death of like a previous way of life, like the country changing, the values changing, so like that the whole town, it basically becomes obsolete, like it doesn't exist anymore.
To me, a good modern title that people might have seen is Eighth Grade by Bo Burnham, who I shit all over last week. I'm gonna praise him today because
go back.
Yeah, so that we can get them back. But like Eighth Grade is a fantastic look at just the anxiety that young people feel now, and how almost the way social media has kind of grown that and changed that
and amplified that.
Yeah, because it's about this 8th grade girl that's just trying to fit in, and she's going out of her way, and she just can't. And she has a YouTube blog that she kind of talks about stuff and kind of tries to help people when she's struggling herself. It's a super damning portrayal of what our kids are going through in this country. That I think even adults can probably relate to. Relate to.
They probably should try to, certainly.
And another example, and I can't believe I'm going to talk about how deep this movie is, but I think it is actually a lot deeper than people give it credit for. And it's why it's been ripped off so much. And that's Superbad.
Yeah.
Superbad is actually a really good look at American youth.
Well, I remember when we went to go see it with Sean, it came out basically bawling.
Yeah, it's which is hilarious if you knew Sean Becker, you find it even more hilarious. But yeah, but that's because it cuts deep, because it's a story about friendship. And I mean, we all have that childhood friend that we just lost touch with over time. Mm-hmm. And Superbad really hits deep with those themes. I mean, obviously, someone's gonna be like, well, they're not broken up, at the end of the movie. They kind of are. The film's kind of alluding to that was kind of their last night, and that nothing's gonna be the same from here on out. But you also have, they're trying to go to parties and and get drunk and get laid and all that stuff. That is kind of like cliche stereotypes, but it does it in a way that just seems, at least to me, completely genuine.
Oh yeah, I've known plenty of people that tried to get alcohol and everything at that age.
And that to me is why movies like Booksmart are so upsetting to me, because it's ripping off Superbad in a way that is just so shameless, but everyone's acting like it's original. Yes, it has less dick jokes than Superbad, and it's less vulgar than Superbad, but it's doing the same thing.
Yeah, they're going to a party.
Almost exactly the same. And I would rather see something different from a different perspective, like Lady Bird did, which was very successful, versus like just making the same movie again.
Yeah, Lady Bird is kind of Superbad-ish, but it's a lot more introspective and a lot less vulgar than Superbad is, obviously.
Right. It feels more genuine because it's like a different experience. It's a similar experience, but it's a different one that feels very authentic and talks about different aspects of a similar time of life versus Booksmart, which is like, let's just do that again.
Are you guys ready for me to piss off a bunch more people?
Always.
Depends if you. Let's see.
Well, first off, I have to give Alex credit because on the list of coming of age movies, Last Picture Show is like one of the top ones. So I have to commend you for mentioning it. But are you guys ready for examples of the Merica coming of age movies? The Breakfast Club and Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Really? They're not really Merica.
They are in the sense of the values are incorrect, unrealistic, and super optimistic. Ferris Bueller's Day Off is a little more cynical, but does portray like, everyone wants to be Ferris, right? They want to be the cool kid. Ferris is a fucking douche. He's a fucking dickhead. He's an asshole. He's not a good person.
But he's a funny dickhead.
But he's still a dickhead, and it kind of like glorifies the dickheadishness in a way that I would describe as Merica. Same with Breakfast Club, right? Oh, look, all the people of different social groups got together and are friends. That never happens. That has never happened.
Yeah, they became friends for a day, and then they never spoke to each other again.
But see, yeah, that's the thing. I feel like, I mean, some of them like are going to in small patches, but like I think the movie also makes the point that like that whole group of them will never talk to each other together again. Like that's just not going to happen.
And I would be okay with that. People
going out with each other now. You know what I mean? Like two of them, but like they're not gonna talk to each other really.
I'd be okay with that if people didn't interpret it as, oh my god, you're such good friends now.
Well, people are always gonna do that, but it's not the movie's fault.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of John Hughes.
Listen, you're gonna get me into some shit. I have to. You can say your piece. I have to put my disclaimer out there.
Why do you like John Hughes?
I mean, I do. Like my family, like those were like big movies that I was supposed to watch growing up. Those were like big movies for the family. So I have to put that out there.
I don't mind them. I just don't. Sometimes I don't think they're as great as everyone always claims.
Alex, I appreciate your honesty, but I'm about to tear your family a new one. Why don't I hate John Hughes?
Listen, you can go. There are ones you can go after, but I will definitely defend Ferris Bueller and Breakfast Club as well. There are other ones I'll just let you go ham. You can go after 16 Candles. I'll let you have that one.
I will have to. Everyone already has because of how racist that movie is.
Yeah, because
he's incredibly racist.
True.
I don't need to say anything. But the only good thing that's come out of St. Elmo's Fire is the theme song.
Oh, which one?
Of St. Elmo's Fire. Be a man in motion.
I didn't see that one.
On his pair of wheels. I'm sure you've heard the song on the radio like 50 times. You've heard it on the radio. I just think that like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, like it's so like it's glamorizing the wrong things in the same way that like other like Merica-ish movies do. And to me, I think that those movies have kind of been wrapped up in American identity a lot, in American culture, that I think their inaccuracies are a big deal. And I can be wrong. I don't care.
It's like your opinion, man.
I feel like I'll say my piece about Ferris Bueller. I feel like I'm honestly surprised you're ragging against that, considering how much you hate stuff like bureaucracy. Because I think it's kind of like against the kind
Ferris is so unlikable.
Maybe to an extreme, but the adults in the movie are also extreme. So it's pulling it's like showing the extremes to get to the comedy and make his point.
It's just Ferris Bueller is such an unlikable character. I hate him. I hate his stupid smirk. I hate a stupid grin like, oh, are you still here? Go away. I freaking hate it. Freaking hate him.
Wow.
I know nobody was expecting that.
I was not either.
I also, another on topic of coming-of-age movies I don't like, fuck Stand By Me.
Wow.
Yeah, I said it. Everyone talking about Stand By Me like it's the greatest movie to ever be made.
Okay, so I'll be real with you with Stand By Me. I do think it's a very good movie, but like to me, calling it the best coming of age movie is like almost laughable because it is way too sentimental and like stereotypical for me and does not really examine things.
What, you don't want to go see a dead body?
Would you call Stand By Me a Merica movie? I would.
Yeah.
But that's my issue with a lot of Stephen King stuff in general is like that's like Stephen King to a T. That's like the sentimentality, the cheesy parts like, oh, there's the mean older kids with switchblades, they're going to come at them. And usually those adaptations are better when somebody like has a different view on it and tweaks it. Like the best Stephen King ones are ones like Shawshank or obviously The Shining, which he hates because it changed everything and made it good. But that like Stand By Me is like that to a T. So I would agree that's my issue with it as well. Although I do enjoy it.
But before I get to ones I do like, because there is one, I'm gonna get everyone back, and I get everyone back.
We hope so, anyways.
Grease is stupid. If you think Grease is realistic, you're an idiot.
Yeah, it's a musical. You know me.
Yeah, I mean, I get people like it because it's cartoonish, but I know some people like it's like the 50s. The 50s were never really treated like Grease. No, fantasy. Also, this is one, oh God, I don't hate this movie, but I do think it's grossly overrated. I do think it does. I would call it an American movie, not an American movie, but Napoleon Dynamite.
I haven't seen it.
I do think it's funny, but holy shit, people, calm down.
Listen, man, that movie is really funny.
I love Tina, come get your dinner as much as the next guy. But you don't have to say it. But every time a llama shows up, I don't have to hear a Tina quote.
Certainly you can overquote it, but I like a good strategic Napoleon Dynamite quote now and then.
Okay, now are ready for me to get everyone back?
You got some work to do.
You know what might be my favorite coming-of-age story of all time? One of the smartest, most like poignant scripts, Mean Girls.
All right, I'm with it.
Yep.
I never thought I would like Mean Girls.
Used to once be afraid to say they loved, and now we say it proudly.
Yep, yeah, we say it. I mean, Lindsay Lohan's performance in that movie hasn't aged super great. But
she's not very good at acting, but everybody else is really good, and the script is amazing.
Yeah, that's one of the greatest scripts I've seen for a comedy like that. I thought I was going to hate it. Like, it's super funny, it's super smart, it has really good callbacks, but it also has realistic themes.
Yeah.
Of the... Is it a little over the top, a little overdone? Yeah.
But like comedic, I think. Like the over the top parts are comedic.
And it never distracts you with how over the top it is, which I think is important.
Yeah. I remember going into that movie thinking I was going to hate it, and I'm like, wow, I was actually kind of enjoyed that. Like, what the hell?
Incredible.
I've seen that like multiple times.
She doesn't even go here.
Yeah, that's what I use a lot. See, and I still quote it. Like that's a sign that it's great. But I do agree. It also has like a lot of really good like high school themes that are very true.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty accurate. Okay, but I guess I'm done being negative.
But I think, honestly, speaking of Stand By Me, it is a little different, but like there's a straight up reference to Stand By Me in this film, so I feel like it makes a good comparison. But Boys in the Hood is like better Stand By Me.
I haven't seen it, but I do want to watch it.
Because there really is it's like a different take on that. You want to see a dead body scene, but like they just go and like to them it's nothing. Like because they're used to growing up around violence. Like to them it's just like so it makes a direct comparison with that scene. But that's a great like coming of age one that's very sad.
To get people back on my side, I'll bring up a John Hughes movie that I do like because to me it's actually genuine. I mean it's a little over the top, obviously, because it's John Hughes, but it is pretty genuine. Living in Wisconsin, the great outdoors.
I haven't seen this one.
Anyone that's gone camping up in up north,
yeah, the region that just once you get a certain point is just up north.
Up north there, eh?
Anyone's been there. It's super genuine. It's really funny. It's like my family's favorite movie, even though like Christmas Story, I've seen it so much that I hate it. Because when I can quote along with the movie perfectly, that's when I know I've seen it too many times.
Yep.
You need to take a break, and then I can probably quote.
Vacation.
I don't know if I can quote Great Outdoors now, but I certainly could have probably a decade ago. So, since we've been talking for a long time, I'm going to do a lightning round. I'm going to say random movie titles, and you have to tell me if you think it's America, Merica, both, or neither, okay?
All right.
I'll try and do ones we haven't talked about yet, but we're going to go through, because we have a lot of movies on this list. I want to get through as much as possible, okay?
Okay.
So, Pearl Harbor.
America.
That's very America. That's extremely America.
It's Michael Bay. Anything he does is pure America because he's got a flag in every scene, basically.
Explosion. Probably an ass shot.
American flag waving in the background while someone's chugging a Bud Light.
Patton.
America.
Yeah, I would say either America or both, but honestly, the both is from people like co-opting it into Merica. I would say more America because it definitely examines him.
American Beauty.
Oh, definitely America.
Fargo.
I would honestly say neither. I don't think it's doing any of those things personally.
I'd say neither.
Yeah, neither.
I think it's more like crime type commentary and Midwest, I guess.
But it doesn't really explore Midwest life that much.
Right. It was, oh yeah.
Oh, sure, bud.
Right down the way there.
You betcha. Don't you know? Jaws.
Little bit of both.
I would say Merica or nothing.
Okay, interesting. I'd say it has some America just because it's basically what happened 20s.
Yeah, I was just thinking, like, well, unless you count the part with the beaches, which is definitely America.
Gotta be both.
It was just Florida during 2020.
The Right Stuff.
America.
It was pretty America.
Yeah.
Like, good. That's a good movie. That's
Apollo 13.
Good movie.
That's America.
I would say America because it's like the right stuff until everything starts to go bad.
And then it's like basically like pulling all your wits together to try to save your life.
So it could be, but
Air Force One.
Both.
that's like America.
The most America.
Get off my plane and kicks a terrorist off his plane.
Get off my plane.
That is a fun movie, though.
Yeah. The first R-rated movie I ever saw.
Oh, wait, that what? That was mine.
Yeah, we
should become best friends. Okay. Coming to America with a T-O, not number 2.
Yeah, thank goodness. I would say America, for sure.
I'd say America.
Yeah.
It's a pretty accurate way portrayal of urban life, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's so funny.
There Will Be Blood.
America.
Oh, a hard America right there. Oil Jeff Bezos.
The Taking of Pelham 123.
That one's hard for me because, like, I don't know if it's making any commentary about America, but it's like that slice of specific people doing their job very well.
I'd say America.
Yeah.
Because to me, it shows off the 70s New York subway. Or 60s, whenever it takes place. Yeah, I'm talking about the original, not the remake. Don't watch the remake, but watch the original right now.
Yeah, which I believe is still on Max.
It might be. It should be. I hope it still is.
It's great.
Dirty Harry.
This one is actually much harder than people think. Because I think the whole Dirty Harry series has been, like, co-opted into Merica very hard. But, like...
I'd probably say American with some Merica moments.
I would say the first one leans Merica.
Mm-hmm.
Though it has both. The subsequent ones, I feel like I haven't seen, like, I would say, like, the fourth one is definitely America. But it's usually a mix.
Let's see here. Argo.
been so long since I've seen that movie. I didn't like it as much as everybody. I feel like I would like it more now, but at the time I didn't as much. But
I'd say America.
I would say Merica just because it completely downplays the involvement of other countries in that whole operation.
It does. It really does.
Very true. Very true.
One final thing I want to say that I covered mentioned earlier, but I want to talk briefly about the modern state of American movies. Because what I've noticed with American movies now is that a lot of, like, the American story now has to do with immigrants, immigration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wish Minari was better, so we could have used that as an example, but I didn't like it enough to bring it up.
Yeah. I mean, Minari is like, I say it's almost kind of both.
Yeah, like, when it really shouldn't, it should just be America, but, like, it does bring almost too much America into it.
But stuff like The Farewell, like, there almost doesn't seem to be American movies anymore. It's like a mix where you have the American story mixed with other cultures, right? It's the culture clash.
Yeah. I would say
we're
Judas and the Black Messiah feels very America.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That's
the one. It's the one we always go to, but like that's just because it's so good. So that would be one. But I would agree that generally that's true.
Black Klansman, Selma.
Yeah, that is where they are like thinking of all these. They are like weirdly like rah America, even though they're talking about times when America was very much not that and probably needs more examination.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But we did it. Like Chicago 7. Yeah, it's like we did it, guys. Like, did we though?
No, but I also think it's a good thing that we're seeing some of these more different voices, right?
Yeah,
because America's a melting pot.
Well, I was gonna say that's basically what America is. It's all different kinds of races all under one roof, which can cause some animosity sometimes, but
I love learning about different cultures through movies and wanting to learn more about different stuff through movies. I really like Korean food, so I got into it after I watched Parasite because the Alamo had Korean food with it. That was good. I want to learn more about stuff, and some of these issues only get brought up in movies. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I like where the American movie is headed. I mean, stuff like All the President's Men, that kind of deep examination is good, especially when you compare something like All the President's Men to the Post, where you have almost the same story, but you have America versus rah America. You have stuff like Detroit and The Hate You Give, and those kind of movies that are very damning, deep portrayals of our culture, and you have crap like Just Mercy,
which could have been a great America one and just becomes like Merica. Like if you actually look at the story of what happened with the guy who it's like, yeah, we did it. Like, I mean, he had PTSD and killed himself, but the movie's like, yippee.
Or stuff like Borat that really does satirize our culture like really well.
Yeah.
No Country for Old Men, like I love this darker way we're going, and I love that we're combining other cultures with it. I think we'll get some really good movies going forward, because we're like in the early stages of this.
Yeah, it's been a lot of like the more independent ones, or like places like A24 kind of putting out ones that are, and yeah, there's a lot of good filmmakers who want to do this sort of thing that we're kind of getting that push with. Like, I won't say it's like the same level that it was in late 60s, early 70s, but like those types of films are coming back more.
Yep.
But with new cultures.
It's an exciting time for different stories to kind of come out to the mainstream. I think everyone likes that, and I think is excited for that because it means new stories, it means different stories, and just more movies, which who doesn't want that? But with that, we're out of time. So, Alex, Justin, thanks again for talking about American movies for this special 4th of July episode. We hope you all had, I guess because it's after the holidays, I guess we hope you all had a wonderful holiday.
And recovering from that strong hangover.
Yeah, with lots of fireworks and
Your neighbor's
bonfires.
lighting fireworks at 2 a.m.
And a good time with friends. So have a good holiday. Check out some of these movies, whether they're Merica or America. Just because it's a Merica movie doesn't mean it's a bad movie. There's some really good Merica ones. There's some really bad America ones. So I guess I hope the takeaway from this is you go watch some more movies, get some, challenge yourself. I guess with some cultures, and I don't know, maybe you'll hate Forrest Gump like I do,
Or maybe you'll love it.
Like we do.
Like everyone else.
Shut up. But thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Idiot Block. You can find us on Spotify, Anchor FM, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to get a notification every time we drop a new episode. Also, follow us on Facebook and Letterbox. The links are in the description.